Today, we are diving into a truly mind-blowing school of Buddhist philosophy. It's called Yogacara, and it asks a question that could pretty much change how you see, well, everything.
So let's just start right there with the big, provocative question. What if that chair you're sitting on, the screen you're looking at, what if none of it is really out there on its own? What if it's all more like a movie, one that's being projected from the inside of your mind outwards? This is the rabbit hole we're about to go down.
All right, so let's get into the core principle. This idea was developed way back in the 4th century by two brilliant brothers, Asanga and Vasubandhu. Their philosophy is often called consciousness only. And yeah, it's a pretty bold claim, so let's unpack what it actually means. The key term you gotta know is vinyaptim matra. It translates to consciousness only or mind only. And the assertion is this: everything we experience, sights, sounds, our thoughts, our feelings, they aren't things happening to us from an outside world. Instead, they are all just manifestations of our own consciousness. It's not that our mind is a mirror reflecting the world. It's more like a projector creating the world.
You know, the easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think about a dream. When you're in a really vivid dream, you don't question it, right? The ground feels solid, you can see things in detail, you talk to people, it feels totally 100% real and external. But then you wake up and you realize that whole entire world was generated by your own mind. Yogacara basically suggests our waking life is working on a very similar principle.
So, if reality is like a dream, then how can we ever tell the difference between what's an illusion and what's, actually real? Well, to answer that, Yogacara gives us this really elegant framework. It's called the 3 natures of reality, and it helps break it all down.
Okay, so most of us, most of the time, are living in what's called the imagined nature. We see a world full of separate, solid things, a cup, a tree, a person. But Yogacara says that's just an illusion that's built on top of the dependent nature. This is the raw, unfiltered, moment-to-moment flow of causes and effects within our consciousness. The whole point of the path, then, is to see through that illusion of the imagined, understand the machinery of the dependent, and finally realize the perfected nature, which is reality as it truly is without that split between me and the world.
So what's the engine driving this whole projection process? How does our mind actually build this incredibly complex world we experience? This is where Yogacara gets really interesting, because it gives us a detailed map of the mind itself.
It doesn't just propose one consciousness, or even the 6 that earlier Buddhist schools talked about. Nope. It lays out 8 distinct layers of consciousness, all working together. This is a huge expansion, and it's totally central to how this whole system works.
So the first 6 are pretty straightforward. No big surprises here. You've got a consciousness tied to each of your 5 senses: sight, sound, and so on. Then there's the 6th, which is your mental consciousness, the one that deals with thoughts and ideas. This is the level we're all pretty familiar with day to day. But the real magic happens in the deeper layers.
And here's where we get to the really unique stuff. Meet the 7th consciousness, or manas. You could call this one the deluded consciousness, or maybe even the troublemaker. Its whole job is to look at this constant, messy flow of experience and then create the feeling of a separate, solid I at the center of it all. It's the part of your mind that's always whispering, I am the one seeing this, or I am the one thinking that. And that is what creates the fundamental illusion, the split between a subject, me, and an object, the world.
And then, underneath all of that, we have the 8th and most profound layer of them all, the alaya vijnana, or the storehouse consciousness. The best way to think about it is like the deep subconscious hard drive of your mind. It stores every single karmic seed from every thought, word, and action you've ever done. And these seeds, they don't just sit there, they ripen and they project outward, literally creating every single moment of your experience. The world you see right now, according to this, it's nothing more than the contents of your own storehouse consciousness playing back to you. Now, here's the most important part. This isn't just some cool, abstract philosophy to think about. It's actually a practical diagnosis of why we suffer. And, more importantly, it comes with a very clear prescription for how to wake up from the delusion and find liberation.
The path is really a step-by-step transformation. It starts with meditation, which helps you quiet down enough to see how your mind is actually working. That leads to the big realization. Oh wow, this really is all a projection. And once you see that, you can start the real work of purification, of cleansing those karmic seeds in your storehouse consciousness. This is what ultimately leads to liberation, that moment when the illusion of a separate self just collapses and you finally experience reality directly, without the filter.
And this quote really nails it. The whole goal isn't to escape the world or get away from it. The goal is to transform the very consciousness that creates it. You're not just redecorating the room, you're changing the projector that's creating the room in the first place.
All right. I know that was a super deep dive into some pretty complex territory, so let's pull back and put it all together. Let's recap the absolute core of this powerful philosophy. So if you remember anything, remember this. 1. Yogacara says we live in a mind-only reality. 2. We can understand this reality through the three natures: imagined, dependent, and perfected. 3. This whole show is run by an 8-layered system of consciousness, driven by that deep storehouse, the alaya, and the ego maker, manas. And finally, the whole point is practical, to transform our own minds and wake up from the dream. And of course, we have Asanga and Vasubandhu to thank for these ideas.
And that really brings us to the final parting thought. The philosophy of Yogacara isn't just some ancient theory. It's actually an incredibly empowering proposition. Because if your experience of the world is truly a projection of your own mind, that means you have a profound say in the matter. It leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. What kinds of seeds are you planting in your own consciousness? And what kind of world are you bringing into being right here, right now?